All right, everybody. I have Jonta, who is a salon owner and has just gone through the brand you process. And okay, full transparency. This is the homie. Jonta and I have been friends for colleagues, partners for several years now. I'm not even counting anymore, but it's been a long time. We've had the same role as media executives, helping big brands to build connections with their target audience. So Jonta gets the thing about marketing and how important it is that your brand is connecting with the people that you service. So that said, Jonta, why don't you tell a little bit about what brought you to giving Brand You a try?
So, like Melissa said, we have been friends for a very long time, professional, personal, have worked with, clients of all sizes, large and small, big brands, little brands, mom and pops, brands that you're familiar with. I do understand marketing and branding and the importance of that. But I think a lot of times when that's what you do for other people, sometimes you don't necessarily take the steps and the time to make sure that you have the structure and the dedication to do it for yourself. Mm-hmm. So I do have a salon. It was my mother's salon that I took over after my mom passed away. So it's also not traditionally my, my lane, my avenue. Right. But I do have a connection clearly because I grew up in that salon, I understand business for what I do traditionally, but may not fully, know the ins and outs of, the best products and the, how to style hair, unless it's my own, and things of that nature. So for me, I thought it was, a great thing that Melissa was doing. And I was like, listen, I would love to try it. Can I be a part of this? To help me give the structure and dedicate the time to do it for myself. And, like I said, it's one thing when you're coming from this side and you're the one asking the questions and helping people figure it out. But when you have to do it for yourself and figure out and answer those questions, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. Especially, like I said, because I can't, it's not something I initially built from scratch, but I do want to bring pieces of myself to the business that was already developed and help it grow and, prosper in the future.
That's like major, like that's so important because a brand always has a part of the human behind it that is emulated through the business and what helps to make it work, right? It's like you got to find the way to make it yours.
Right.
So I feel like that's like a major key thing. And just looking at, okay, like I have a sentimental connection to this business. I want to continue a legacy with this business, but how do I bring myself into it? And how do I organize myself so that I can do this like properly?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And it was such an honor for me to have you in the class, and you brought value to the experience for everyone else who was participating. I was like, win-win, here we go. I got my girl to my left. She knows what she talk about too. This is amazing. So it was just like, it made it that much more fun. So I'm so glad that you were there. So tell a little bit about what you thought was the most impactful discovery that you made during the 8-week process.
Honestly, I think there were a few discoveries. One, I think overall the process was great. Like I said, having the structure and the way that you broke it down into like bite-sized pieces. So I wasn't overwhelmed because, once again, when you do it for other people, you have the structure, you have the timeline. When you're doing it for yourself and you're running this business and, trying to maintain this and trying to maintain that and juggling all these different things, I had a long to-do list of, what needed to get done and what I wanted to do. I just didn't have the time to properly organize it in the way and that it needs to take the steps to get ultimately to where, the ending point was. So I think the structure was great. Like I said, kind of breaking it down into smaller assignments week after week. There were, assignments that were kind of difficult. There was, what was the one that I really struggled with? I forget the assignment, but there was one that I was like, I can't figure it out. I just don't know. And,
was
and
that,
then,
that was that the SWAT? I don't know if that was.
I don't think it was the
No, it wasn't the SWAT.
SWAT. It was one after that. But, when we had the one-on-one, like you really kind of helped me figure it out, because it was like, I couldn't quite understand what I needed to do. But then when we talked through it, it was like, okay, I got it. That's it. Like, this is it. We got it. Boom. Like, next steps. So it really kind of helped me like structure and follow a timeline to actually achieve a much greater task, versus me just having a long list of things to do and trying to fit it in where I could. Each week it was like at the most an hour of work, but each week everything led into the next thing that ultimately, ended in my final goal. So it was a great program. It was structured, I think great. I loved the interaction with the group. Just having, once again, sometimes you just need other people to kind of bounce things off of. And I think that was a great asset. It was a good size where people could be heard, you could understand, and you could help clarify. And it wasn't too overwhelming at the same time. So it was, I think it was a great program. I'm so happy I got to be a part of it. I definitely highly recommend it. Like I said, Melissa's great. I've worked with her before, but working on a project to this scale was definitely different, but valuable.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that, Jonta. If you could just paint a picture of what the before and after looked like for you, as of course, with the H&J Salon in mind, like what was the feeling before, and how did you feel after the 8 weeks?
Before, it was a little overwhelming. Like I feel like over the last maybe year and a half, like I've done a good job of kind of creating different things that were helpful to the business, kind of helping to create, a logo and a concept, and kind of renovating interior, and had an idea of the things that I wanted to implement, of, bringing back in products, and, creating these POS systems and all these different elements, but I didn't fully put them together. And at the end, what I came away with was like a cohesive marketing strategy for a specific goal. One of the other things that I absolutely love was my brand style guide that you provided, which, like I answered some questions about like, what colors make you feel good? And, and then, those sorts of things, and just random questions, but it actually came together as this beautiful guide that was exactly what I was envisioning. So even though I didn't even realize, me just saying these colors, like, were actually colors that I've already incorporated in the salon. And then it added in this element of like masculine and feminine, because it is a unisex salon. So that's another struggle of like, how do I make it appeasing to everyone, where it's not like you walk in and you're like, oh, it's all pink and bubbly for girls, or it's so dark and masculine, like, how do you find the right balance to make everybody feel comfortable and welcome, and, all of these different things. So, I think the style guide for me was one of the major highlights, because it really did encompass what I wanted to achieve, what I want to see, and some things that I had already started to implement, and it really tied it together. So, moving forward past this task, like I still have a structure that it's like, okay, if I want to, do anything, if I want to do a commercial, or if I want to do, social media templates, or, all these things, now I have this cohesive guide that really kind of makes sure that no matter what the marketing that I incorporate, it still has that on brand feel that ties it all together.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm so glad that you love that. That's one of my favorite deliverables in the process. And just seeing the reactions from you guys when you receive it is just like major reward. Yeah. Okay, so I got just one other question for you, and that is, in your opinion, and I know this would vary, right? But in your opinion, what would you say is the biggest benefit that a growing brand would receive from, or a brand owner, I should say, would receive from going through this process?
Oh, I mean, I think there's so much value in it. You know, for me, like I come from a marketing background and I still thought that there was a ton of value. So, you know, I think if you are a small business or a growing business or growing brand, you know, like you don't have to be a brick and mortar, you don't have to be a business. You can be an artist or a, you know, dentist or, you know, whatever you are, like you are your brand essentially. You know, like you said, there's always a person behind the brand that people need to connect to. But providing a structure for people either that don't know, I think has a huge value, because if you don't know what you don't know and you don't know how to market, like where do you start? So to have a professional help you and walk you through it is a benefit. But if you are somebody that, you know, comes from a marketing background, like I know I'm not the only person that's like, when it comes to doing it for yourself, sometimes either you overthink it or you just are, you know, because it's what you do for other people, you don't necessarily take the same, you try to skip a step sometimes, you know what I mean? Because you're like, oh, I know I can just, and you really can't. So just having the structure once again, and that guidance to kind of remind you. And like I said, really breaking it down into like bite-sized pieces where you're not like, okay, I have this 3-hour thing that I got to do this week. When am I going to find the time? You know, like it was small enough that the time allotted was something that you could fit into your week, but also the steps were significant enough that like each week you were like, oh my God, I made progress. You know what I mean? Like I'm so much closer to the end result. And it just, you know, once it finally came together, you're like, man, I did that, you know, it wasn't that long and I did it.
Yes.
So I mean, I just think it was valuable all around. Like I said, I highly recommend it. It was great for me. So, you know, I don't know about nobody else, but it was good for me.
Awesome sauce. Thank you so much, Jonta. Appreciate you sharing your experience with folks who are thinking about doing the program. And, you know, we'll catch up soon.
Yes.